Hi, today I want to talk about how we can encourage children to read using the landscape. I think it's very important that all children learn about their local landscape and learn about the local myths and legends that are inherent within them. For example, I've written a series called The Beast of Bittersley Grange. There are three books in this series: The Beast of Bittersley Grange, The Stones of Power, and The Lords of Time. And they're all set around Biddulph Grange in Staffordshire. There's an absolute wealth of myths and legends around that area. And the Grange itself is a really fascinating old house. It's an old people's home now, but it has a garden in which every single part of the garden represents a different part of the world. And I use this as a basis for my trilogy, turning the garden into a time and place machine. So every time the children go into a different part of the garden, they have the possibility of being transported to another time and another place. That's just one example. The Silent Pool, which is a novel that I wrote for young adults, 12 plus, that is actually set in the Silent Pool based in Surrey, where I come from. And that again is a really interesting area. There are lots of ghost stories around it, and it's also near where Agatha Christie disappeared. She parked her car and then suddenly disappeared for several days. Nobody knew where until she turned back up, and it's been the source of conjecture ever since. So I use that as the basis for my novel, The Silent Pool, which is a paranormal romance for aimed at mostly girls, 12 plus. My novel Canis Major Mystery is for younger children, age 8 to 10, and that's all about children who go into their local landscape and discover a landscape figure of a huge dog hidden within the earth itself, formed by features of the land. And all these things I think are encouraging children not only to read but also to look at their own landscape, to go out and to discover the legends and the myths and the stories that are hidden within that landscape. Canis Major Mystery uses the figure of the girt dog of Langport in Somerset, South Somerset, near the Severn Estuary, and the legends of wassailing, which is the pouring of cider onto the roots of the apple trees to try and ensure a good harvest. And I also wrote the novel The Hounds of Darkness when I was living in a Gothic castle in County Durham, and that was absolutely full of local legends. It was actually the place which the song Bobby Shafter Went to Sea was based on. There was a story that the castle was haunted by a ghost of a previous owner called Bridget, who was an heiress. She inherited the castle, and she was in love with Bobby Shafter, who in actual fact was an MP for a neighbouring area. And unfortunately, Bobby Shafter actually married somebody else, and Bridget died of a broken heart, and it was said that her ghost haunted the castle where I was writing my Gothic novel. I also used not just the castle but the whole of the surrounding area, which was full of myths and legends, and a very beautiful area. So all these things just encourage children to look at the landscape with new eyes, even if it's an area which they don't live in. I think just by giving children that awareness of the landscape, you can encourage them to look around them, because every single area, I mean, even if it's an inner city, that originally it would have been probably a much smaller area. For example, the areas of London, which we consider just a massive urban sprawl now, were once upon a time individual little villages. And you can still see traces of the past if you do a trip down the Thames by boat. You see things that you don't normally see, all the little alleyways that lead down onto the Thames that originally used to be the quays, and the names of them are still preserved. So anything, I think, that where we can get children to go out into the landscape, to look at the names, look at the legends, look at the places within the landscape. So you're kind of doing two things at the same time. You're getting children to read, to enjoy stories, and to get to go out into their local landscape and to explore the planet, which it can only be a good thing. So that's all I've got to say for today. Thank you for listening, and I'll be back soon.